Alright, what is going on, guys? Of course, as soon as I start a video, or about to start a video, it just starts to rain. But, whatever. A little drizzle, we'll just roll into it. I want to discuss, what happened with Wawa, how everything went with that, the whole entire process. Just, what was it like dealing with Wawa? If you don't know, Wawa is like a gas station slash food type chain in like the Jersey area, like East Coast area. I don't know what area you're from, but it's like a convenience store, but they have like food options and stuff like that. So what happened is on Thanksgiving Day, Wawa put gas in my truck instead of diesel. I'm sure you guys know all that already. And I had to go to a shop, have them, replace everything on it. Now, I made a video discussing everything that's been replaced, but I'm just discussing what happened with Wawa. So the truck got to the shop. First off, when everything happened, the lady that I dealt with at the gas station was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, we'll figure this out. Don't worry." She gave me a couple phone numbers. She's the one that kind of got the ball rolling. But then after that, I took it to a shop. Once it was towed to the shop, I had called them and said, "Hey, listen, my truck's sitting there because someone put, gas in my truck instead of diesel." And they're like, "Oh, geez, all right." So they started working on it. They started just, they pretty much just dropped the tank, took out the fuel filter. They just kind of just did really basic stuff. And they're like, "Yeah, you got fuel through the entire system." They asked me if I started it. I told them no. So the injectors were okay. But that was the first step with them. Then a couple days later, or the next day, some things I may be a little off because it's been so long, but it was either the next day or a couple days later, I had called Wawa to figure out, what I should start doing here, what we need to do. I called like their insurance company. The woman, she kind of gave me some info. She's like, "Oh, we need to review your claim. We need to look at it. And, we'll go from there." Now, I believe it was the next day after that, they had called me back and said, "Okay, listen, we're going to be sending an appraiser over. He should be there in about 4 days," or something like that. So another 4 days, truck sat, shop's not really doing too much. Appraiser finally comes out. And the funny thing is, when the appraiser came out there, he didn't even know what vehicle he was looking at. I'll never forget this. The guy went out there and he asked the guys at the shop, like, "Hey, listen, I'm looking for a Ford Fiesta." And the guys were like, "A Ford Fiesta?" It's like, "We don't have any Fiestas here." You're like, "Do you mean the F-250, like the one that has the gas in it?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, I guess it's the one I'm looking at." He's like, "I could have swore I was coming out here for a Ford Fiesta." But, I don't know how you screw up this truck with a Ford Fiesta, but I guess it is what it is. But the appraiser went out there, he looked at everything, he, just has to do his general inspection, just check things. Now the problem was, this is where a lot of the problems started to happen. When the appraiser went there, he never gave them his card, he never gave them any of the information that the shop needed. So the shop had absolutely nothing. They just had an appraiser going out there. Then they're like, "Oh, okay, I guess, we'll be contacted soon about what exactly we're doing." But they were never contacted. Nothing was ever done with the appraiser. Like, he just stopped his job there. He was supposed to give them further information. So after like a week of the truck just sitting there, I'm calling up Wawa again, and I'm like, "What are we doing with my truck here?" I'm like, "You guys sent out an appraiser. Like, what is going on?" And the woman's like, "Oh, well, you should have..." Just a little quick clarification here. When I say Wawa, I'm talking about Wawa's insurance. Actually, Wawa, I was not speaking to them. I was speaking to Wawa's insurance. And the woman that I dealt with, I don't know if it's her personal number or whatever, I don't know. She is absolutely terrible. She is not a good person. She's not nice. She has no customer service skills in the slightest. She's always nasty. I could not stand that woman. She was not happy about a single thing, any single time I spoke to her. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But the actual woman that I dealt with every single time through the Wawa insurance was absolutely terrible. Just throwing that out there. But I spoke to her. I'm like, hey, like, what are we doing here? You know, like, my truck is just sitting there. I had the shop calling me, like, what are we doing? And she's like, oh, well, they should have all the information for working on your truck. And I'm like, well, no, they don't have all the information. They don't have a quote of how much it's going to be. You know, my shop is saying it's going to cost, I think it was like $5,500 or $6,000 to do it. And your appraiser saying it's going to be, you know, $2,500, $3,000. So I said, we need to come up with some type of, you know, solution here, you know, what we're going to do. So she tried explaining to me to the appraiser there's going to be a first check that gets sent out. They just send out a check for $2,500, and then if there's any remaining costs, there'll be a subsidiary, or I don't remember exactly what she said there'll be a, you know, a reoccurring, like there'll be an extra money put towards it, but the initial price is $2,500. And I'm like, well, that's nowhere even near the price quote that we need to be at. And I told the shop, I was like, well, we're not even near where we need to be. If you guys are at $6,000 and they're at $2,500, maybe a little bit more than that, you know, I don't know how we're going to come across, you know, how we're going to come up to agreement here. So I wish I remembered this part. There's a part in the story that I kind of don't remember. But the shop ended up dealing with the appraiser's insurance. Apparently the appraiser that went to go look at my truck isn't part of like Wawa's insurance company. Wawa doesn't have their own insurance. They have an actual, like, you know, like you and me, we have our own insurance companies that we deal with. Wawa has their own insurance company too. But apparently the appraiser that went to go look at my truck isn't part of the Wawa insurance. They're a separate insurance. So when I'm contacting the woman about the information for my truck, she's trying to tell me that the shop should have all the details from the appraiser, but I'm trying to tell her the shop doesn't have anything. So they were able to, I guess, contact him somehow. They were able to, I think they ended up speaking to the woman and she was able to forward all the information. That's what it was. They ended up speaking to the woman that I was dealing with through Wawa Insurance, and then they got the contact info from the appraiser and also dealing with his company. So once they started dealing with that insurance, that's when the things, you know, really started, the ball started to get rolling. That's when they figured out, okay, we can get these parts, we can get that. Now, Wawa did not want to replace my fuel tank, and that's part of the reason why the bill was so expensive initially, because the shop said you should probably replace your fuel tank. You know, the fuel tank on one of these, the cheapest one we found was like $1,000. You can get ones that were up to like $2,000. So they just put the more expensive tank in there at the time. Just, you know, that's how shops do it. You know, they just put the most expensive stuff in there, and then you have to figure out, you know, you got to work with the insurance or whatever to see, you know, what number you can come up with. But initially, that's why the price quote came out to like $6,000 or whatever it was, because they wanted to replace the tank for $2,000, and they also wanted to replace the fuel bowl, and all the metal lines, which you don't need to replace the fuel bowl and the metal lines. Now, they ordered a rebuild kit for the fuel bowl, but that's besides the point. The tank was cleaned, and that was the other video. So once they started ordering parts and doing things, you know, there's really nothing from Wawa. Now, keep in mind too, at this time, you know, I'm using a rent-a-truck. Wawa is paying for me to use a rent-a-truck. I told them when I called what the hell am I saying? When I called the rental company, Enterprise, that's why I'm saying Esurance. When I called Enterprise, they said it was going to be, you know, they asked me what kind of truck I want or what kind of car I want to use. You know, they just they pretty much asked me, like, it was pretty much free reign. I could have gotten whatever car I wanted, whatever they had at the lot. I could have gotten like a sports car, I could have got a truck, could have got a hybrid. I mean, whatever they had, I could have got. There was no limitations to what vehicle I could have gotten. So I was like, I want a truck. You know, I was actually kind of hoping I would have gotten like a Chevy or a Dodge, just try something else, but I ended up getting an F-150, which is fine, as you guys know. But yeah, I had to rent a truck the entire time during this whole process. Now, my truck sat for a while because of, you know, everything going on with this pandemic and this whole world going on. And, you know, dealing with the truck that's from '99, you know, some of the parts are kind of hard to get. So, when it comes to time-wise, I had to rent a truck for quite a while. I mean, I think it was like almost 2 months I had the truck, maybe. I don't track all the times, but it was right around 2 months I think I had the truck. And Wawa never said anything at all. They never said a single word about why have I had the truck for so long or complained about anything. Wawa, I have to admit, was really good at about everything. They really did not give me any complaints whatsoever. They tried to work with me as best they could. The main issue really kind of lied down to that woman with their insurance company. I'm telling you, she was absolutely terrible, and she made this process just way worse. She was trying to blame me for things. She's like, I remember I had to contact her, and I was like, hey, listen, I have a quick question about this rent-a-truck. I said, what do I do? I said, is there any like special process I have to do to go through you guys to drop it back off at Enterprise? Or do I just drop it off? Like, what exactly do I have to do? And she's like, you still have that truck after all this time? You're still driving the rental truck? And I'm like, well, ma'am, I didn't have my truck back because parts are on back order. It was hard getting stuff. And she's like, oh, well, that shop, they took way too long with that. She started like just going on and complaining. I'm like, I don't need this information. Do I need to go through you for the drop off the rental truck or no? And she's like, no, you just go to the Enterprise. I'm like, thank you. You have a great day. And I hung up the phone. And that's the last time I'll ever speak to that woman. And I'm very thankful. Because I'm telling you, that woman was just a nightmare with everything. That is really the only bad process that I had during this entire thing. I mean, the shop was great. A couple times Ford, because they got all the parts from the dealership if they could. Ford actually sent them a couple of the wrong parts. They had to reorder stuff. So, there's really no issues really with the shop. I mean, that's how it happens sometimes. But actually, Wawa themselves were really good. I mean, I looked at the bill. Enterprise sent me the bill for the rent-a-truck. Just a quote. I mean, I don't have to pay the bill, but they just showed me how much it was. And if I remember, it came out to like $2,200 or like $2,000. So Wawa must have some type of deal with Enterprise because, I mean, if you look up an F-150, a rental, I think they're like $100 a day or so. I had the truck for like almost 2 months. So it would have been a lot more than $2,200 or whatever it was. So, I mean, that's pretty much it about my whole entire process dealing with Wawa. It was really just a lot of back and forth conversations, trying to get everything figured out. And the main holdup was really the estimate, the appraiser not giving the shop all the details that they needed, because the shop's coming to me and then I'm going to the insurance, and then the insurance is going to me saying that the shop should have all the info, which they didn't. So that was literally like a week and a half right there of just wasted time. But other than that, like I said, it did go pretty smooth, and Wawa wasn't that bad. And I don't want to say, I would love to go through this process again, because I would rather not go through this process again. But if I had to go through this process again for whatever reason, it really wasn't that bad. So if it happens to you, hopefully you have a company that is pretty decent with it. You don't have to fight with them and everything else. I thought at one point I was going to have to get a lawyer, but everything got figured out. And, here we are now driving the truck. Everything's doing good on it. As you can see, got the air dog hooked up. There's the sump, and then there's the air dog. So, truck's doing good. It's the first drive. I mean, I only drove it like 2 miles, but I haven't really driven it because the roads have been absolutely terrible. It's been covered in salt. It's like we finally rained, so the roads are a little bit clearer now. But I'm gonna give you guys, I'm gonna give you guys a review on the air dog, how that is. That's gonna be coming up. I want to put some miles on it, maybe like 500 miles or so, to kind of give you like an impression. But I definitely have more videos coming. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care.